Welcome to the second episode of Brookside Close-Up Podcast. I'm Kieran Mahoney and I'm joined by fellow superfan Louise Jakes. Well, today we have a fantastic episode. Between these two ladies' characters, we have seen infidelity, alcoholism, bereavement, dyslexia, child endangerment, to name but a few. So we both have the honour of interviewing Eithne Browne, who played Chrissy, and Rachael Lindsay, who played Sammy. Thank you so much for being here.
Very welcome.
As just two fans, it really is just a dream and an honour. Yeah. And we really, really appreciate you taking the time out today
That's
to
lovely of you to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
So, Louise, would you like to answer the first question, please?
So my first question is the audition story. How did you get the part? And what was your first day like on the set?
Well, I'd been there once before. I played a character where I was like a fashion consultant type thing that came round to Sheila Grant's house when she was going through all her traumas. So I was that was a character there. So they knew about me. And I read with Peter Christian. Now, I'd worked with Peter Christian originally in the West End and Liverpool in Blood Brothers. He played Sammy in Blood Brothers, yeah. So we knew each other from there. And also, I think we'd done Stags and Hens at the Young Vic as well. So Willie Russell plays and brought us together. So I'd worked with Peter. But, it was funny, we were talking about it just the other day. There was a wonderful woman called Jan Smiley who used to work at Brookside, and she worked in the casting department and in the offices. And at that point, I was working at Keith's Wine Bar on Lark Lane, and because I lived just down the road. And she came in and she was just like, what? Don't tell anyone. I told you. It's you. So she told me, because she said you couldn't keep it a secret longer, and they sort of like rang me a day or so later. The agent had been in touch. So that's how I knew. Yeah. How about you, love?
Well, I was 15 at the time, and a friend of my sister's, Dean, played one of Damien's friends at the time in Brookside, and he'd heard of this new family being cast, and the eldest daughter was 14. So I was like, I'll lie about my age. So he took me to his agent at the time, and his agent sent me for the audition. I was in a drama school at the time, and all I used to say was, I'm going to be an actress. And they'd be saying, yeah, but what GCSEs are you going to be sitting, and what college? I was saying, I don't care, I'm going to be an actress. And then I went for the audition and then read with different people. And then I got a phone call from the agent to say, you've got the part. And then I put the phone down and rang my mum, and she was at work, and I rang her and she just screamed and dropped the phone and jumped in the car and, came home. And and then the first day kind of filming, we just spent a lot of time in that lorry, didn't we? We reversed, we drove in. We reversed, we drove in.
Because people don't realise how tiny the close is for this big
tiny, and it was huge, wasn't it? And also I don't think people realise that we're not in a studio; they are real houses. So we're kind of one camera, aren't we? So we do it. Every scene's really cut down, and it takes a lot of takes. So we spent a lot of time. And then I remember the first night. Our episode aired, and then I remember first time going out into the public after that, and life was never quite the same.
What was it like in the public? How did you
mixed?
feel?
Yeah, to be fair, very very mixed.
There
reactions.
Could be people who would be absolutely lovely,
and
it would be a pleasure to talk to them. And I often used to say, well, even now, you can have a conversation with somebody who's absolutely lovely because of Brookside. Weren't you? And during that time, but also. People could be incredibly rude. I mean, to the point of you going, would you behave like this with anybody else? I remember one time somebody, where was I? It was a football game or something. But somebody shoving this hot dog wrapper in front of me, going, sign it for me, son, sign it. And I didn't, the pen wouldn't write on the grease, and it was like it was my fault. It wasn't really working. And then I remember somebody, shoving his son to have his photograph taken, and the kid didn't want it to happen. And I could see he was getting distressed. The dad was sort of shouting at him, and you just think, I'm not that important. And also, I have to say, apart from this one famous woman at the Marks and Spencer story was, it was quite often from middle-aged men. I'd get abused as Chrissy. Yeah, no, right backside on you. Thank you, hello. And then once I was in the Albert pub on Lark Lane, and I was waiting for friends to come out. I was just looking forward to it. I had a soda water, God's honest truth, soda water on the bar, waiting for friends. And the group of men with their pints looking at me and going, oh, yeah, aren't you that one at Brookside? You know? Yeah, okay. And this man went and said, but I hate it. Every time my wife puts it on, I go out the room. And I went, yeah, she pays us to make it. and his mates laughed. And he couldn't understand why they were laughing. I was just like, oh, I'll get out of it. But sometimes you could have lovely conversations and people would be kind or nice or just be so pleased. There was once I was in Portugal and I just heard somebody say, and shows you how long ago it was, did you put the video on to record Brookside? And I heard Brookside and it's like Pavlos, your head just goes round. And this woman, oh, it's Chrissy. And there was somebody, there was about 8 and he was just like, what's Chrissy Rogers doing in Portugal? So, but I mean, I think for you as well, being so young, beautiful.
No, but I'm with you on that. I agree. The most abuse I got were from middle-aged men and young boys. I got the odd catty little thing from girls, but the majority of women and girls were lovely. And they were all very like, I copied your hairstyle or I loved your ear. And girls the majority were lovely. And like Eithne said, I'm just going to echo everything she's just said, really, because the majority of people are lovely and you meet some wonderful people and they're very complimentary and the letters you get will be lovely. And it was an honour. You know, and you did meet. Well, we've met you. You both today. It's so much loveliness from it, but with that comes the other side of the coin, and it was horrendous at times. You know, and I was like 16, 17, 18, starting to kind of go out with my mates and clubbing it, and it was just abuse. And like you say, you'd be minding your own business. And I remember being in a club, some guy came up to me, just spat lager all over me, and went, Sammy, who do you think you are? You're not gorgeous now, and just digging you in the back like a jealous shouting.
Somebody ripped that gorgeous big hat, and somebody ripped the hat off your head, didn't they, and stuff. That's abuse.
Yeah, it is.
So it's physical abuse, I mean, and just verbal abuse, a lot of verbal abuse. And like you say, like, oh, I hate your character, or I want to smash the TV every time you come on. And I'm like, or I pay my TV license for you. I've had that a few times. Like,
BBC.
We were on Channel 4. I don't think he did, but okay. Just vile, just absolutely vile. And then you get your people who actually believed you were that character, which I could never get my head around. And some of the fan mail were lovely, absolutely lovely. And I've got a funny story with one, but another one, it got a little bit out of hand and it got a bit stalkerish, and then I
apologised, didn't I?
And then he was kind of threatening to kind of come to the close, and we were both going to, and he'd drawn his grave and my grave next to it and stuff like that. God. So publicity had to kind of get involved, and like when I gave birth to Louise, I got a lot of knitted cardigans and flowers and gifts as if I'd had a baby, which I was like, okay, I'll take the flowers, because I worked really hard in that episode. I lost my voice and my knuckle. I thought, oh my God, imagine really giving birth. It must be exhausting, which I know now. But and then one story, I remember I did get this photograph of this guy and he was gorgeous and this lovely letter, and he was like, I'm really sorry for writing. I feel really strange writing this because I don't even know you, but I've fallen in love with you, and I know it's not you I see on the telly. But if you ever find yourself lost and looking for a genuine guy, give me a call. So obviously I didn't. Then I went out with my mates, a few drinks. We got back. I showed them the picture and I said, should we ring him?
Of course you did.
So we went, yes, he's so cute. Rang him. He went, hello, and I went, hiya, this is Rachael. And he went, oh, piss off. He was measuring. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear. Okay. So he was like, oh yeah. Just put the phone down. So we rang him back and I was like, no, it's really me. And he thought it was his mates and put the phone down on me again. So little does that guy know, it really was me.
It really was you. It really was you, yeah. But mine was, I was in Marks and Spencer's one Christmas. I mean, Christmas, the queues are huge at Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really not feeling 100%. I'm doing my dad's shopping for my mum and all of this business. And I saw this lady in the queue, this older lady. She said striking 70 herself, but I saw this older lady in the queue and she was giving, like, I just smiled, you know, trying to be polite. And she left the queue. She left the queue at Marks and Spencer's. Why would you? Comes over to me. I was going to put pen to paper last night and have you written out of that show. The way you're letting that girl drink, I mean, she's not my daughter. I just, and she went on and on. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. I'm going to tell them they need to get rid of you. And you're just like, Merry Christmas.
Yes.
All the
But
best.
isn't it also, I know it can be unpleasant, but isn't it also kind of like an honour that you're doing such an excellent job that you are convincing people that you are these characters?
You have to deal with people differently, don't you? You absolutely do.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you do. And, you know, we've got hundreds of those stories. But, yeah, you do. And then I think what's important, especially like when I did the young alcohol, you know, the teenage alcohol storyline, you know, I got a lot of letters from young people who were suffering the same, you know, going through the same thing. And I think when people can identify with a storyline you're doing and then say that's helped me, then that's what you do it for.
That must be an honour.
That's the power.
That we have that.
And
with
that's why you want to do it so
absolutely.
well, don't you?
Well, we always really tried to get it right, didn't we?
Yeah, you do.
We cared. It wasn't just, we'll come in and just do it and go home. We absolutely did. And you know, Kevin, who played Jeff, was the same as well. And Diane Burke, fantastic actress. So, you know, we really did try and get it right. And when Jeff had the dyslexia story, because first of all, I was like, Chrissy's supposed to be a teaching assistant, and she doesn't know her son can't read.
On that,
Anyway, we got over that, and there was once we did a children's television programme. We got to meet Roald Dahl in London.
Wow.
Yeah.
We got to take him to the House of Lords, so they made a lot of it. And I was telling you that later that night, back in Liverpool, I'm in Morantos on Lark Lane, and this lady came into me in the toilet. Can I just say thank you so much? Thank you so much. And she held up my hand. She said, my son's dyslexic, and we got my diagnosis. I am, but we didn't get diagnosed. She said, and they just told me I was stupid because I couldn't read. And I thought about killing myself. And I was listening to this story, and you go, and she's saying, thank you. And there are things like that.
It is powerful.
Where you've made a difference.
Yeah, you have
That's
made
great.
a difference.
Yeah.
Rachel, there was a story that
here
you
we
that you told in Brookside the Teenagers, a video that you did a while ago, which I thought was so funny. When there was the scene where Sammy wet the bed.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember this?
I do. I do remember that. Look, I'm blushing already.
It wasn't you.
You had said to wardrobe that you didn't want to. Did they have you wearing a nightie or something? But you wanted to wear pajamas.
Did I?
Yeah.
Did I say that?
And then so they said, "Oh, we'll go and have a look in the back." And they tried to give you Ray Don Bobbins
Oh, yeah.
pajamas
I'd have paid.
because it had Ralph Hardwick written in the corner.
yeah.
You just said, "I'm not
I'm
wearing
not wearing
them."
them. I'm not wearing them. Yeah, I do remember that scene, and that was all when it was the heavy drinking,
Yes.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah, and I remember the props girl coming in with a glass of like very weak orange juice, just pouring it on the bed, and I was only about 16. Majority a guy, you know, young lads on the camera and stuff, and I wouldn't be embarrassed now, but at the time, I
Oh
was
no,
like,
no,
imagine
it's
so,
like
yeah.
I was quite
awful.
embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's awful.
And then I had to wake up and go, like, feel the wet around me.
We've all done it, love.
I mean, when Sammy had the starting to kind of like reject the baby, there was so many. I'll bring up 3 as an example. So many powerful scenes,
there were.
and that attributes to so much. Obviously, attributes to the writing, to the directing, but mostly for you making it so real and so believable. I mean, there's a scene where Louise is quite young and she's in the pram, and then you're in the back garden, and you
I remember that.
And you
just
start
shut up,
bashing it
just shut, and then it starts like a very light tap, and then in the end you're really slamming it against the back wall. And then there was a time when you're trying to bathe Louise, and then you just gently flicking the water up, and then all of a sudden she starts to be more aggressive with it, and then there was a scene where she had the pink pillow and she was going to suffocate her. I mean, how did it feel to do those scenes so
to be honest, back then, it felt good because I was an actress back then.
Yeah.
As you're telling me that now, and now I'm a mother, I feel really emotional.
Yeah.
It's a totally different perspective because I was just acting
Yeah,
back
yeah,
then.
yeah.
I didn't really understand what it felt like to, you know, to have that baby blues, you know, that depression, that feeling, you know, and I got pretty low after having my daughter. And but I think that again was a very, very powerful storyline. And I remember getting a lot of feedback there from young mums who felt that. But at the time, they were very powerful. I mean, it felt a bit weird as well because obviously, you know, you were intentionally harming a child. So it felt uncomfortable, but from an actress's point of view, it's a grippy kind of storyline. There was some powerful scenes to play. So, but as a mother, I feel really emotional because, you know, I mean, my daughter's, you know, my world, and, you know, I absolutely adore her. But I do remember, you know, those first few weeks, those first few months, and you're just crying and you're lost and you're scared.
You can't
and
sleep.
Yeah, the sleep deprivation.
You're so tired. You're so tired. That was the first thing that hit me when I had Neil. And before then, because, you know, when you're heavily pregnant, you're sleeping all the time. I used to like just sneak off and, I just have a sleep here, have a sleep. And then you're absolutely knackered and you can't sleep because this baby is crying. And that was the first thing that struck me. It was like, I really want to sleep now. And you're mothering.
And you do adjust and you do get through it. And then, you know, I mean, she's just my life. I absolutely adore her. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. But yeah, those first few months are hard. I can't recall, I know you'll know, but did she get any help? You know, what did she do? Did she talk to somebody? Did she get any help in the show?
When it got to the point where she actually took the baby.
I don't remember.
I wasn't going to say a word. He is the sponge. He's the font of all knowledge.
What happened?
I know.
What happened?
There was at one point.
What did she say?
There was at one point where Sammy actually goes to the hospital and leaves Louise, the baby, in the pram outside, and then she just comes home like nothing's happened, and Owen's coming in and Frank's coming in. Where's Louise? Is she asleep upstairs? It's the best. It was for the best, and so people didn't quite really.
More emotional than it was for you, did it?
People didn't really. Everybody around her wasn't understanding what she meant. They saw, well, surely you mean have you left her with another relative, or? And then you ran over.
She was really depressed.
Yeah, you ran over to the Farnhams. Then like Max and Patricia took you in, and then that's when. Like the authorities that kind of like came in, and that's when she was like
trying to get a refund.
That's
brought this baby back. It's not working.
That's when that woman hit me in Marks and Spencer's. Oh, what happens in Marks and Spencer's?
I know it's Marks'.
I was in Marks. That's
all. You know, our focus.
Back of my head. I turned around. This 90-odd-year-old little lady with a handbag said, telling me I wasn't worthy to be a mother. I was a disgraceful mother.
I used to get that.
I'm like that. Oh,
it's not real, is it?
No.
But people don't realise not real.
To be honest, now thinking about that now. That was really powerful, wasn't it? And she was really depressed. Yeah. And now I'd probably put more into that storyline than I probably did at the time.
Yeah. Because you've got those emotions as a mother. You know how that would.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Louise, do you have another question?
Yeah. The first Katie was played by Debbie Reynolds and got changed to Diane Burke. Yeah. Was that Phil Redmond's decision, or was it something to do with it?
Don't really know, to be honest. No. It was nothing really to do with us. I don't know whether it was... we didn't really get told. It was just... I don't know whether it was down to Debbie wanting to leave. I don't know whether she had some school stuff on at the time, or whether they just wanted to change.
Change her, I think.
We just got told.
We just got with it because it was quite early on.
And it happened with
Jeff,
Kevin as well. Yeah. Kevin.
We sort of knew about Kevin because Kevin, he wanted to leave and do his... O-levels. And he wanted to go to university.
He wanted to study
his education, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, you know, we sort of knew that was lovely.
He was lovely.
He was a good little actor,
He
I
was
think.
great.
And
then we got the lovely Stephen Walters, who's doing fantastic
He's only
now.
just done The
Was
City
that the
Is
second
Ours.
Jeff, was it?
That was the second.
Yeah.
And then obviously Diane was the second Katie, who was lovely.
And are you still in touch with Diane Burke? Because she seems to have vanished from the face of the earth.
I did see she was involved in an agency up on Seymour Street, and she was working up that way off London Road for a while. Has been a while since I've seen her. And then I was at the Everyman one night, and there was just a tap on the shoulder. And someone said, "Hiya, Mum." And it was Diane behind me, so that was lovely.
Oh,
I was saying I've still got, I had a little porcelain tree that Diane's mum got for me, to Diane's other mum, thanks for taking care of her, because she was so little at the time.
She was so little.
But she was brilliant.
She was the first actress I ever met.
Oh, was
from
she?
Brookside in McDonald's. I was about 16 and I said, "Can I have your autograph, please?" Because there's no cameras then.
No,
she gave me a hand. I was honestly,
Yeah. No, but lovely family, gorgeous girl.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, I haven't seen her for years, sadly.
So when it came down to leaving Louise home alone so Sammy could go on holiday with Noel, do you remember much about this storyline?
I do remember the storyline. I don't remember Noel. Who's Noel?
Why are you asking me? I'd gone by then.
Noel was the guy that you had met
Oh,
in the club, and he kind of like romanced you, but you had lied to him and you said that Louise was not yours.
I do remember the storyline because I actually blamed Katie, didn't I?
Yeah.
Because I said I left her a note. I left her
You
a
would,
note.
yeah. You had left
I
her a
remember
note on
this.
the
saying
fridge.
I've gone away for the weekend.
And it dropped down.
Yeah, but she didn't come home or something.
She came home, but she was going straight on to like a dance recital somewhere else, and so she was left alone.
Yeah.
And then she just kind of like crawled up to the window like the next day,
that,
and then the Simpsons and all that were coming up to. "You're okay, love?" She's in that house by herself.
Yeah, no, I do remember that, and then I remember we had to do a big court case about it and going. Yeah, to the courts in Liverpool.
Why did the NSPCC let you go?
I know, what do you think? I tried to kill a child. I left the child. And I think she still kind of was dragged along with me, wasn't she? Along the bumpy road. God.
And then one particular night, a one-night stand with Max Farnham.
Are you just picking all my best bits or worst bits?
I remember the Max Farnham.
I didn't know. Carry on, lad. So
I will, Eithne, I will.
A one-night stand with Max Farnham. You're not taking that gin off you now.
Oh, God. Yeah, Max Farnham. Wow.
What do you remember of working with Stephen Pinder?
Loved it.
Oh, he's a gorgeous man.
Absolutely loved it. The only thing was he used to make me laugh, and we
I've heard this. He does this with other people as well.
Honestly.
So then Sammy had the affair with the older man, Mr. Tim Darby.
Oh, Tim.
Played by Christopher Blake. So what were your memories of... Because there was obviously a lot of it away from the close, and so you weren't with Eithne, you weren't with the other cast members. It was basically just more you and him in that location house.
That was a bit strange at the time, to be honest, because we were a family, and I loved Eithne, and I still do. Adore the bones.
We loved working together.
And it was fun, and it was lovely, and you had that support. And because he was a lot older, I mean he was lovely, but he was quite a serious actor.
Was he?
And I'm not saying we weren't. We took our jobs very seriously.
Very serious people.
But we laughed, and it was just like a family. So, and he took it very seriously. So at times it felt a bit isolating and a bit strange. But then I got to kind of build, a relationship with him, and it was different. It was, but I remember, we were out on location a lot of the time. But you mentioned before Max Farnham as well. I think I had a fling with everybody on the close. Sure, I did.
I didn't
Can't say this to your mother.
Did you not get a fling with anybody? No. That's outrageous.
I just moaned. Who'd want to fling with her?
But people say this, don't they? Oh, Chrissy just moaned.
Yeah.
I thought that she was a fantastic mother. She had so much thrown against her with these kids. But she was there, and she did everything she could to make sure these kids... You have to try and
remind people that I didn't write it. I don't direct it.
Yes.
And then, so when the camera comes on, they've given this to you, and blah, blah, blah. But when the camera's off, we had an absolute ball. We really did have fun, didn't we?
Some laughs,
we did.
Would you think you were anything like your character?
Oh, no.
as a mother?
No. No, I didn't. You said mother after I'd said no there. Can I just point that out? She's an amazing mother.
No.
But I went no as no to the character.
No,
she's
no.
funky. And she's trendy.
All of that. And so Chrissy I just peeled potatoes and just gave you fresh orange juice, basically. To thank.
Do you remember leaving the 3 kids to cook a turkey, though?
No, I hadn't left you to cook a turkey.
You sawed it in half, tried to put it in the microwave.
Why did we do that?
You went out with Frank and expected the 3 kids to cook a turkey.
Oh, you asked us to do it.
You expected them to do it.
It's very un-Chrissy-like, isn't it?
Very.
They would ask you to do odd things and you would fight for the character because you had a different author, different script.
That
every
was
single week.
Tricky sometimes. You had to
So
keep
the continuity.
hold to the continuity of your own character.
You know, the coat could be red one week and you go, no, it's blue. The coat was blue. Or there was, I remember one argument about the cost of this coat for Jeff or your
It was
Sammy's
Sammy.
coat.
Sammy's
It was
coat,
a saga, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You had to go
And
to
you
and from the school
just
because you wouldn't wear
the
this coat because it wasn't fashionable
Of
enough.
course, it would have been
Yeah.
me. In trouble.
Chrissy had paid this for it and that for it and stuff like that. But yeah, you would be like, can't I do something a bit more interesting? Or, you know.
Yeah.
And then the only time that I did have a bit of a do going on was I was supposed to have a fling with the doctor.
Dr. O'Rourke.
Dr. O'Rourke, who was lovely. We got on so well together.
was he?
Yeah, he was a lovely, lovely actor. We had a real laugh together. And when they wanted, Chrissy was going, no, I'm going to stay with Frank and the kids. I can't do this.
Oh, you should have done it.
I would now.
Would have been fun.
It would have been great. In fact, I might give him a ring. Anyway,
Doctor.
hello, doctor. Do you know what? I'm having these headaches. Anyway, I think it would help. But they wanted Chrissy to walk away from this relationship that wasn't going to happen. And they wanted to, had to walk up this street and that was it, don't look back. And then they wanted the heel of her shoe to break. So she limped up the stairs. Oh, no. No, I used to try and argue for Chrissy because I believed that I wanted the best for the character. No, just let her walk away, please. I had a broken shoe. They wanted me
So
to
were you
limp off.
quite frustrated at times?
Oh,
then?
Yeah. Well, they knew.
What a waste.
They sort of knew I was because I'd be like, I came in with like a bosom cancer story, like, can Chrissy have something like that to deal with maybe, And they gave it to Patricia Farnham, didn't they? She had it. My bosoms were bigger. Mind you, perhaps it was cheaper for the NHS. Anyway, sorry, I shouldn't joke about it, really.
Was there anything that you feel your characters wouldn't do, after getting to know them and then you get a script in? Not necessarily just like a line of dialogue, more like a major storyline, and you say, Chrissy wouldn't do that, Sammy wouldn't do that.
We sort of did occasionally, didn't it? You can't,
sometimes,
but at the end.
I've got to say, I do feel privileged. I feel very lucky because I feel Sammy did get some
fantastic
storylines.
That's because you could handle them.
But I was also very lucky. But no, not really. I did enjoy most of them, but it was, like you say, because we had so many different writers, it was a bit patchy sometimes.
Yeah.
But then I do remember once when I'd had the alcohol storyline and then she'd stopped drinking and stuff like that, and it was about a year later, and I think she was getting married to Owen or something like that, and it said Sammy raises a glass of wine, and I went, no, she doesn't drink. So it's just
keeping that in your head.
That in your head, because everyone's working together. But at one time, especially when we went to 3 episodes a week, you'd be filming those 3, you'd be rehearsing the 3 from the next week, and you'd be finishing off the 3 from the week before.
Yeah.
So if you were heavily storylines, you'd be working on 9 episodes.
Yeah.
In a week, wouldn't you? And it was a lot to...
It's suddenly you stepped up work-wise, really.
Not that you couldn't rely on everybody else, because everyone was really good at the jobs, but they weren't just looking after you. They were looking after the whole cast, so you had to look after yourself and what you were wearing and what you did. And, it just made it easier for yourself, really.
It's like when you're on stage, it's your props. You check your props every night, and it'd be a little bit like that. Because I remember once I was filming, it was a scene with Peter Christian. He was arguing with somebody, and I was in the background, and I had to give like reaction shots and stuff like that. And so we went to reshoot it, but nobody had put the props back because Chrissy was marking stuff, moving things and looking again. So I said, I'm sorry, they're about to go. I said, no, I'm sorry, the props haven't been reset. The girl who was doing it was upstairs, hadn't come down to reset it. And oh, what's the problem? I went, well, I'll be in the wrong place for a certain day. You know, so you'd set, when he says that, you'll be stood there. When he says that, you'll be stood there. So you're just trying to, I'll do it. Okay. So you could have things like that happen. You know, you had to be your own master, as it were.
But I found that I wanted to do that because I'm organised, you see. So if I knew what I was doing and where I was meant to be, I just could relax a little bit.
Yeah,
more,
definitely.
Really.
Do you remember the when Sammy was involved in the big car crash?
Yeah.
I remember that car crash.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was something else.
That was really
that.
Yeah.
I mean, there are scenes. I know there must be scenes where it would just be like a stunt driver, but there were quite a lot of scenes where you could see that the car was moving. All of you were in that car together.
Yeah.
So, how much of it were you actually there for, and how much?
Oh well, obviously safety.
Of course, yeah.
We weren't in it when it was tumbling.
It tumbled. So nobody would have survived that.
No, we were in it, and we were attached to the car in front, and the camera guy was on the back of that and shooting into our vehicle. But yeah, you know, we were acting that really, you know, that panic, that screaming and all like that. And then obviously we all got out and the stunt guy took over and kind of took the car right off the side. And
it was good.
That was something amazing. But and then I think I got a scar, didn't I, from it? And Owen got in a wheelchair.
Owen was in a wheelchair.
Was he paralysed?
He was in a wheelchair temporarily.
I'm sure, did he walk? I was going to say, I'm sure he walked again, didn't he?
Yeah,
he did walk again.
Yeah, I saw him a couple of weeks ago. He looked fine.
But my
Your
scar, I don't know how long that lasted. I had to go into makeup earlier every day.
Just,
I had to get out of bed even earlier, 6 o'clock in the morning to get my scar put on. But they were great. The makeup girls were great.
Yeah, they were lovely.
There was, again, so many fantastic scenes, but there was one where it was like Casey's trumpet recital thing, and you were at the front, and then Sammy wasn't going to go, and then all of a sudden Sammy stumbles in drunk.
I remember that.
Starts shouting, and then Chrissy's just so embarrassed, and then she just kind of like just sits at the front, and then just walks out. And then that's when she, because Dr. O'Rourke was always seemed to be there
Have you stopped drinking? Then it worked. The things a mother does for her children.
Is there any Is there any other behind the scenes stories behind the cameras
that we can't share? Tons of them.
We just had a ball. Whenever we'd have to go, because the Rogers didn't always get sent away to film together, but sometimes you'd be asked to do things of, you know, like a publicity type of nature. We always had a ball. We just, you know, loved being together, didn't we? It was very easy to do that. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I would say 95% of the cast were just great.
Yeah.
It was very grounded, very down to earth.
Yeah.
There was a lot of laughter. Very few stars, wasn't there? Very few nasty
confused
characters.
people.
Yeah, it was the majority were just lovely, and even the crew. You know, you were friends with the crew. We were a team. You know, you're very, very quite intimate with the crew because they're very close to you, especially the camera guys, aren't they?
And you needed them. And oddly enough, I did a gig a couple of weeks ago, just like 3-4 weeks ago, at Prescott at Shakespeare North.
Oh, good luck.
With Davy Edge and Mickey Stark.
Yeah.
And who was there in the audience? Came up at the end, John Falkard.
He was a floor manager.
He was a floor manager, and he was one of the better ones.
Funny.
He was very
hilarious.
And he was so lovely. And you relied on him because he wanted things to be right. And sadly, that night, there was somebody I used to go to school with at the other end of the theatre. Somebody took me away. There's someone who wants to meet, and I wanted to be with John and go, mate, what are you doing here?
Yeah,
it was so lovely.
We did. I mean, we had some great times.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
Jordan, one of the times when Sammy was on and off with Owen, she's in the club, and then she sees that he's with a temporary new girlfriend, Grace.
Oh yeah,
I remember that.
You get the drink thrown on you, yeah.
I can have him back anytime I want.
Did I kick off?
Like Grace got the drink thrown in your face.
Yeah, I do remember that. Do you know, I'm just thinking about the trumpet scene and then that scene and stuff. it's weird. I don't think I could do those scenes now because I'd be very aware of all those people there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it was quite, because we were so, the houses are tiny. And so there's only a handful of us. And then you go on these locations to these big scenes and then all these extras would be there and you're behaving like that, drunk out in front. But you had to just shut that out.
Yeah,
I suppose
absolutely.
You're not aware of it. I wasn't aware of it, that all those people were watching me. Whereas now I think I'd be a little bit more self-conscious. But
I remember once we were doing a scene, and it was about the drinking. And we were talking to each other in, the Rogers house. I was so close, and we both had tears in our eyes. And we were like, oh, keep that, right, don't look at me, try and keep it. Right, that's great, okay. And then when we went to shoot it, it was, okay, cut, we'll move the cameras. And we were like, oh.
No, we just want to flow with it.
We just want to flow with it. This is, and I tried to explain to the director. He went, you've got to trust me in editing. He said, but you've got to trust us.
With the emotion.
We can't give you that in cuts. This is pure. This is really pure. And I think it was like something that went to Mal Young at the end and came back. Yeah. One of those. But I fought for, because we were
It would have been nicer to have things more on one shot, wouldn't it? You know, longer. But like I said, because we weren't in a studio and there wasn't multi-cameras, we had to literally, honestly, dissect a scene. Yeah. So it'd be like the two, then on me, then on you. So you'd end up doing the scene about 25 times, wouldn't you?
Just to move it.
And over and
if
over
you wanted to move through the house.
Yeah, so getting that emotion. I mean, some days, you'd be called in to make up at 6 a.m, then you go to this shoot, that shoot, you get home at midnight, and I used to sit there sometimes and not know who I was for a minute because I didn't know how I felt because you use so many emotions all day on these big dramatic storylines. Yeah,
as well, you were 16, 17. Yeah, because it's a very emotional time for you anyway. Like I was in my 30s, so it was a bit easier for me, but It was. They asked a lot of you, and Jeff and Katie as well, and you delivered all the time. You did.
Yeah, it is tricky for for anyone really, but and that drunk Grace, was it?
Yeah.
Because at the time, Danny was my boyfriend in real life, so I had to watch him snogging this extra.
So were you? So Owen was your boyfriend in real life as well?
Yeah,
at the time.
Didn't know that.
Moving on.
And then she grew up. So,
Then I got more than one brain cell.
Yeah, and then it changed.
Yes.
There was one particular scene, I say so many fantastic scenes between yous two. Sammy has sloped off to the off license, and she's just buying like a small bottle of gin.
Don't talk to me.
And then you followed her in, and then it was, what's this? No, she doesn't want this little one. That's not gonna do you. I said, Sammy, we want the big one. No, look, give me 3 of them. Oh, Mum, I don't want them. I know, seriously, tell him I don't want them. Well, I bought them, and then you took them back to the house, and they were lined up in the living room. And then Frank came home. He said, "Do you think that? What are you doing this to her for?"
Yeah.
"Oh, Dad, help me. She's gone crazy and all this." They're staying there, and if she wants to drink them, then she'll do it in front of me because at least I'll know where she is. Yeah.
See, I told you I cared. I remember that because I think that was one where we had a lovely female director with us. There was one because obviously as well, you got a different script every week and you got a different director every week. So trying to feel that continuity of emotion going on. But I think I remember. If I remember rightly, it was a female director that we had who was like really good. She'd just come in and, it was like she wanted it just right and set it all up for us. So we were, allowed to give it a little bit of welly. Because sometimes you'd be going, "Can we do that again?" "No, we haven't got time." So you'd have to move on because there were time constraints as well.
Yeah, there was.
It was like, I always used to think about Brookside where we started Monday morning with, "Hiya, and every Friday night was, "We've got to get in the can. Get in, finish. You've got to finish in half." We've only got 5 minutes. But you're saying about Brookside because it was done in houses. It was hilarious. If you opened the wardrobe door, there was no wall.
Yeah,
because that's where the camera was.
Tour,
and if you took a picture off the wall, there was a hole there where the camera could come through.
I mean, sometimes
those houses.
If it was on you like that, and I'd literally the camera guy be here, and we'd be like squeezed up. There was no room to breathe. Was there?
Everybody was in, and I do remember once I was doing this quite emotional scene, and I'm looking just across the camera, and one of the crew, the floor crew, is because obviously they're in there as well. It's hot. It's all of that business. And I'm trying to do this scene, and he's like that. One of the others, "I've got to shake it." Okay. "I don't know what you mean." I go, "You've got to shake underneath the camera.
yeah.
You know, so there was all of that real life going on around you as well. I was trying to concentrate. And
do you remember once with the, you know, the mic, the booms?
Yeah,
It was always
yeah.
boom in, boom in, and we'd
Boom
be,
in.
boom in.
Boom in.
And then he was going, so they said, stop, there's a noise. And they're like, what is it? So they're going round, they're going to the fridge, they're going round, no, it's not that, it's not that. And then the next thing, it was the sound guy clacking on his chewy.
Oh.
And he goes, going round everywhere. And someone went,
It's you. Oh my God.
yeah.
But they, I mean, the crew were great.
Great.
Yeah.
Absolutely great.
Yeah, we did have such a lovely time. And they were so, because for some people it was a good training ground. You know,
Very
they just
good.
started there
Very good.
as teenagers or in their 20s, and they worked their way up. They learned how to become cameramen and things like that. So it was a good training ground. And what people forget is that Brookside was its own small country.
Yeah, groundbreaking.
You had,
Oh, absolutely.
you know, you had gardeners, you had cleaners, you had the girls in the canteen.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't just the actors and the crew.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's all of those
and
guys
the
as well.
security guys.
Security guys were
and, you know,
gorgeous, weren't they?
Yeah, you know.
Absolutely
it really,
lovely.
You hear people say, well, we were like a family, but
Yeah.
it was.
There
It
was
was
all
a
of that.
full-on team. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I remember going into the canteen, and I don't know whether it was Rona, and
Rona,
I was pregnant at the time in the show with
Yeah.
Louise, not in real life. And I remember, and I said, oh, Rona, I feel like some chips. Can I have some chips? She said, no, you can't. You're eating far too much. And by the way, you're not actually pregnant, you know. She would let me have the chips.
They would be like that with you. You know,
I was like,
they would tell you off.
chips.
They were
Yeah.
brilliant.
But,
Brilliant.
And then she laughed and gave me the chips.
Gave you the chips.
But no, it was great. It really was.
What was it like working with Bill Dean?
Oh, I loved him.
Was he anything like his character?
Yeah. And he was so sort of helpful as well at first. He used to say to you,
He was lovely, yeah.
warn you about continuity. That's why I always keep my hands in my pockets, girl.
Yeah.
Keep your hands in your pockets. Don't be giving it all of that. You've got to remember what you do. Hands in your pockets. And you respected Bill because he'd done it all.
Yeah.
You know, he'd done films at that point. He'd been in television for years. I always remember going to visit him because he lived in West Derby Village at one point near West Derby, just up. And he went, if I see you walking towards me and your hands are empty, I won't be opening the door. Have a bottle. I just bring a bottle. But he was just lovely.
I fond memories of him. And I remember I got a cleaning job for him. I
That's
think.
right, yeah.
And he paid me 50p.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
He was like,
And I remember we were going for a take, and I knocked on the front door, and we're waiting. And I'm like, we're waiting. And I'm waiting, and I'm like, he's supposed to have answered the door by now. So we go, cut, Bill, nothing. They went round the back. Anyway, someone got in the back and he'd fallen asleep. They'd taken that long to set up the scene. When we actually went for it, he was like that, snoring in the chair.
in the back.
Yeah, and I was like,
Oh, yeah, he was lovely.
funny.
So when Chrissy left on Sammy's wedding day, first off, it makes fantastic drama, but do you think that she would have gone on that particular day?
Not at all.
No, we know. It was a bit of a slap on the wrist because I'd argued and stuff like that. I really do feel that. But there's no hard feelings or anything now. But at the there's no way she'd have left Sammy.
No way.
No. And the fact that, that nobody saw me go, even though I had a suitcase and a hat the size of a cartwheel on it. I've still got that hat. I've still got Chrissy Rogers glasses.
Have you?
Oh, they're like arc welders goggles. You've never seen anything so heavy in your life. They're like that.
I don't think I took anything of Sammy's.
This was just on my head, wasn't it, when I left? But what they didn't realise, whatever director was doing that last episode of mine, he obviously wasn't looking at the camera, because I'd put a note for the camera lads and the lads in, who were doing all the editing and stuff, because we were all mates. And so I wrote this note saying, kiss this goodbye, and I stuck it onto Chrissy's suit as she walked off. So I'm walking across the close with kiss this goodbye and the suitcase and the big pinwheel hat. And I went, cut, right, that's fine, that'll do. And the crew were going, no, did you not see? And he was a bit annoyed because he hadn't been looking and he'd been caught out not looking.
Yeah.
But for the guys in editing and the other crew, it was just like, thanks, lads,
Yeah.
That was lovely. But I wouldn't have left like that.
So when you came back in 93,
Yeah.
They used to do it a few times in Brookside, but I always would love the scenes where you would sit, the camera would be panned right down to the floor, and then a taxi would come in. And then you would just see somebody get out. You could see was the legs. And then they'd move towards the house. And then Lynn opens the door, and it's Chrissy's back.
Yeah.
What were your memories of working with Sharon Power?
I went to school with her sister.
Wow.
So I was made up.
was
She got the
lovely.
job. Oh, she was gorgeous.
She was really lovely.
I was so pleased that she'd got the job, and we used to laugh about it. And we had certain things in common as well. And I think it was so funny because I think Chrissy, what was it? One thing was she'd gone off to Japan or something like that. We used to joke about it. Chrissy, she'd gone to Japan because she came back with kimonos or something, and she could hit people. And we used to joke about things like that. And Sharon was lovely.
She was
lovely, she was gorgeous. So it was lovely seeing her, And it was so funny because I don't know if you remember the day.
Probably not.
The day,
I've been through the menopause. Probably not.
The day that we were at that, I think it was in St Helens, the crematorium for Frank's funeral.
We can't say what we did.
I'm not saying anything like that, but it was thunder and lightning. It was absolutely thunder and lightning storm.
I do remember.
And we were all worried in case the coffin was going to open. I'm not dead. But it was we were all totally serious. But we were laughing because you do in those situations. Yeah, we had such a laugh. We had such a laugh. And then of course it's acting. Somebody goes action like.
Worried face.
And when they came back to the house, and it seemed like it was just going to be like a somber wake.
Yeah.
And then Bev has already gone and told Ron, well, actually, the real reason why Tony's in this coma is because Frank was over the limit when he was driving the car back.
Yeah.
And then Ron makes this big and passionate speech to everybody. Oh, Frankie, I'll make a drink to him because he's the reason why my son's in a coma. And everybody didn't really know what to do with themselves. But it was so powerful.
I'm sitting here listening to you going,
Wow.
as if I wasn't even there.
That sounds so good.
So is this the point where Ron didn't know about Jimmy? So is this the point where Ron didn't know about Jimmy killed his...
No, because...
Did Jimmy kill? Oh.
Yeah, Jimmy was
Dean,
off his head on
I love Dean, yeah.
Jimmy killed your dad, Sammy. Didn't you get the memo?
I hope so. I paid him.
Do you know what? Do you know what? I should have done my homework.
No, it's life.
Do you remember all
done
that?
things. I do remember certain things. But
how did Jimmy kill Frank?
He was off his head on drugs.
It was Frank's wedding day, and then in the car.
like that. Oh, go on, yes.
What happened then?
He had been having a few drinks, and then Tony had got in the front seat, in the front with him, and then they were driving, and then Jimmy was on drugs. He come speeding around the corner, went to sway, and then crashed into a sandstone wall. That's so Frank had died, and Tony was in the coma.
Yeah. Sandstone
and
is so
survived.
Liverpool, isn't it? Sandstone wall. Probably
Apparently
been there
it was
for
a fake
years.
wall. He built a fake wall,
Yeah. I like that.
Wow. I didn't know that.
OMG.
Wow. God.
And then...
We'll have to start watching it.
Oh, don't. All I do is moan, apparently.
And then Sammy was complaining about the guitar because her father was in the Scotty Dogs.
The Scotty Dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Rough.
And so there's a scene where she's arguing at the top of the stairs.
I didn't push her.
With Lynn.
I'm sticking to that.
It's okay, it's
I did
okay.
not
We'll
push
take
her.
it on board. Okay, then we'll say it was an accident. But Sammy, you were still kind of responsible for the death of that baby, And I'm not letting it go. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's terrible.
Has the doctor sent me here? I feel like I'm dreaming. Am I on tablets?
I don't remember half of this either.
I feel like I'm on very heavy medication.
You do? Jesus.
You're the murderer.
I've done loads of stuff that I'm not even aware of.
I just walked off from a doctor, love, to save my dignity.
Did you end up going off with the doctor?
No. Of course not. Chrissy wasn't allowed to have fun.
Oh.
Just allowed to peel spuds and give you orange juice.
But no, I do remember that scene, and we were fighting over it, weren't we? And she
And then
stumbled, she
did.
fell.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. Yeah, I do remember that, actually.
But I do remember the whole thing of Lynn, as far as she was concerned, as far as the law were concerned, that it was her house. And I loved that you would had that scene where you said, just make sure that you all fight for this house, because it shouldn't really be Lynn's.
Well, it's not.
It's not.
Yeah. There you go.
Fact,
I'm glad that we can agree on this.
I'm going to go back to her and tell her.
I'm going to have a word with Sharon Power.
Yeah, she was lovely.
Yeah, she
Absolutely
was. Yeah.
lovely.
I went to school with her sister.
Right.
Broughton Hall.
Have you seen her recently? Or?
No.
I haven't seen her. Well, since we worked together.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you think about Liverpool as being such a small place. I saw Gabby Glaister in London. I was walking down Oxford Road and she went, darling, it was like, oh my God. And you can be in Liverpool and not see people who probably live only 15, 20 minutes away from you. It can happen.
But back in the day when it started, we were talking about this before, it was massive, wasn't it? You know, when it first started, and, you know, they covered storylines that no one had touched.
No one had touched.
Nobody had touched.
Pushed the boundaries.
They really did.
Yeah.
And it was pure Liverpool humour. It was about real lives. And I think it resonated with people. People could recognise their own lives. And then as it went along, as all the soaps had, they had to start then. It was all about getting, you know, the figures up and people watching. And then that's when the car crashes and the helicopter crashes.
And the affairs and
because,
the
you know,
sex,
everybody was fighting for viewers, weren't they?
Yeah.
And the murders came in. But at the beginning, it was raw. It was really raw. And it was, you know, story like one of the ones I was involved in was the animal rights.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in the real life, I got involved because I'm a vegetarian, but I got involved with banning circuses. You know, animals using being used in circuses. So that was powerful for me to do that in real life through the character and stuff. But when you think back, there was only 4 channels, wasn't there? And when you'd go, it was like a bit of a cult, wasn't it? It was like you know, really trendy to like Brookside. And if you go to somewhere like Newcastle or Scotland, London,
When you worked away, London,
you know,
it's true.
it was massive. You couldn't literally go anywhere.
It was that, wasn't it? Seeing people's faces.
In shock.
Oh my God, it's Chrissy Rogers or it's Sammy Rogers or it's
Ireland,
and you'd be
Scotland,
playing it down, you know.
Newcastle, London. It was massive. They loved it. They loved it.
Absolutely.
They loved the Liverpool humour. They you know, it was.
It was very well written as well, I think.
And it's got that clung, like once I left Brookside, and I was touring in theatre and stuff, and it was, you just reminded me, I was in Dublin and stuff, and it'd be like, oh my God, and Belfast. Belfast, I got mobbed. One night I was over there to do like a chat show thing. Stayed with these gorgeous guys who were friends of someone I knew from Lark Lane. You know, that the way you are with mates and stuff. And it was extraordinary. I got mobbed in this pub on the Sunday.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
Huge in
Really
its
was.
day.
Oh, and it was funny when I was there was one when I was actually touring in a play, and I got food poisoning, and really severe. It was so funny. And I had to be in an isolation ward in this.
I know, I was going to say, not funny about food poisoning, Eithne.
Because I was in this isolation ward in a hospital in Belfast, and it was my 40th birthday while I was there. So everybody sent flowers. It looked like a chapel of rest. I was like, I'd lost so much weight. I really did. And what was funny, you'd see, I wouldn't see anybody, you know, no mates couldn't visit, and 1 or 2 people from the cast were allowed. But, you know, I had to keep very still and get better. And you'd see people going along the top, you know, where those windows were. It's you one from Brookside. Look, it's there. It's Chrissy Rogers. And people just like opening the door and looking. You're like, going.
Yeah, you got no privacy. You know, things like that when like you'd be in hospital for an operation, or you know, people come gawping at you on the wards, or
that was
like
funny.
You know, when you're on the bed and you've got nothing on but a gown, and like they say, oh, what's so and so like in
I know
Bucky?
that happened to me.
About to go on anaesthetic. I do remember once though, like the invasion of your space. As much as it's funny, it's lovely, and like Eithne, we were always very polite. I'd always say yes to a photograph, yes to an autograph, even though then you'd get abused for it. You know, and thank you and what have you. But then I do remember I was in the hospital. My granddad had just died, and I stepped out the ward, and I was crying, and someone came up and asked me for an autograph. and they could see I was upset, you know, and you're like,
Pick your moment.
you know, I'm like, sorry, I've just lost my granddad, and it was like, oh well, you know, as if like, well, I want this autograph.
Yeah.
And who do you think you are? And
You'd have things like, oh, she was a right snotty cow.
yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, not
and
at
you want to
all.
defend yourself.
Yeah.
Somebody's written about you. That I don't. And also, people could be so critical. There was this. What was it? This guy. What was it? Last time I saw you, you'd had a few bevies. I went, was I in the chemist? No, I said, was I in the vets? He went, no. I said, where was I? You said you were in the grapes. I said, I was in a pub having a drink. How did that happen?
Yeah.
And so you had to justify yourself a lot.
All the time.
In some ways, that when people just don't understand you, it's Liverpool.
I
You're
think
them.
I think it's
I'm you.
I think it's different being in a soap though to anything else, because you're in their living rooms like 5, isn't it? Is it on? I haven't watched any soaps for years, but you know, and they feel like they know you. You see, they know that character, they know you, so they have this feeling of entitlement, really, that I approach you, but also like as if
they own you.
They own you, and they know you.
Weird. It's
Not
weird.
with everybody. I mean, you did get like, you know, I get women like
Gorgeous.
screaming and running up to me and hugging me in the street, and they feel like, oh, Sammy, I love you, and they go, oh, I know you're not Sammy, but I love you, and blah blah. And you get all that.
And you would get asked to do some, you know, like with the animal rights thing, you'd get asked to do some amazing things that would make you so proud.
Get invited to some amazing charities and, you know, be
or shows or whatever, you know,
to raise
you know,
money and stuff.
I remember being invited to the opening of, you know, it's for older people obviously, but the Rolling Stones opened a thing called Sticky Fingers in London.
Yeah.
And I was invited to that. You know, and it was absolutely, you know, you're like, oh my God, I'm sitting next to Ronnie Wood. At the time, Neil would love that now, you know, but you're like, at the time. And it was, there were lots of things like you got to meet other actors outside of soaps, you know, in London or whatever. You know, wonderful things to remember because of Brookside.
And I remember we were invited to, you know, the Donny Osmond, you know, where they do the studio and audience with. Yeah. And I could take my mum, who adored Donny Osmond, and she actually spoke to him, and you know, so being able to do things like that is really nice.
There was definitely an upside to that, and you never took that for granted.
Definitely,
it's absolutely lovely. Yeah.
In 2001, Sammy came back, and she was with a guy, a character called Ted Moran.
Who's he?
He was like a gangster.
So I can't remember Ted Moran.
And he was played by Ted Robbins from Phoenix Nights.
Yes, Ted Robbins.
Did I?
Yeah, I do.
Oh.
He was rich, wasn't he?
Yes.
I was after his money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good girl.
I do. Ted Robbins. He was great.
Was he?
He was lovely. Yeah, very funny. Yeah, he was really nice. Actually, quite humble. From what I remember. He was really nice.
Yeah, he was McCartney's cousin, wasn't he? And Kate Robbins.
But from what I remember, he just seemed really nice.
I did a radio thing with him once. Lovely man. Yeah.
How did it feel being in those fights? Because you were in it right up to the end, weren't you? So how did you feel about those? How did the dynamic change on set when you were like told the show was gonna end? And
well, I think we were all quite devastated at the time because we were losing our jobs.
Of course, it must be terrifying.
You know, and I remember leaving and thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I remember going for auditions and doing a few things. I did an episode of Casualty. I did a couple of plays. I did this, but nothing felt right. What? Sorry. Well, sorry, Daisy's just maybe reminded me of a job I've done or something. And I remember at the time being so lost and thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because it's part of your life for so many years. You're playing that character for so many years. It's your income. Yeah. And you're like, wow, I am completely lost now.
So you don't do acting anymore? No?
I chose to give acting up, which I never thought I would, actually. I honestly believed I would act till I died, because that's all I wanted to do, act. I didn't want to be famous. I don't like fame. I don't like anything about it. I just wanted to act. I love acting, and I did. And then I decided I don't love it anymore. I don't want to do this, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And then years earlier, I'd had counselling myself, and I remember the counsellor I was seeing at the time said to me, "You should become a counsellor," and I was like, "No, don't be ridiculous. That's it, blah blah blah." And that always played on my mind. So I kind of went to college and I started an introduction into counselling. Blah blah. I ended up doing my degree, and now I'm a psychotherapist, and I adore what I do. But alongside that, I also, with a very close friend of mine, Browne, an inclusive performance group for adults and children with different needs and neurodivergent young people. And we built that up, and we put on massive big productions at the Brindley Theatre. So I actually really enjoyed directing.
You're still in the business, aren't you?
Directing and bringing out performances in others. But I love doing the lighting plots and the mic plots and doing the stage. And I actually really enjoyed directing.
That's brilliant.
A lot of actors do those to go from acting to directing.
I just took a step back from it last year because it was just all a little bit too much. I was spinning too many plates.
Just thinking the psychoanalyzing and the helping. I'm your mother. Here's the test case. No, here's the test case right here. That's our next podcast. Sammy psychoanalyzes Chrissy.
Yes.
I'd love that. Yeah.
But I go into a completely different, not a role, because I am authentic. I am in the room as a counsellor, but I adore being a counsellor. It's an honour. It's an honour because you build that relationship with people and they trust you, and they share with you things they've never told anyone. Yeah. So it's an honour, and I adore that job. But I'm looking into doing it. I've written a book. I've just written a book, actually, not about my life, or in fact, if I do write a book about being Sammy, I better come to you.
Anytime.
You'll know everything.
No, I've just written a book, so I want to kind of get that. I don't know how to do Amazon, so I'm just trying to work Amazon out, and then I'm going to try and promote that. But it was about my journey to conceiving my daughter, right? Because I was single for absolutely years. I was hitting 40. I was like, I'm never going to meet anyone, have a child. So I ended up going, decided to do it on my own and go through a donor. So I went to a fertility clinic, went through everything. Wow. Very long story short. And then I got matched with a donor, and then that freaked me out because I was walking down the street going, it could be you, you could be the oh no. Then I asked a very dear friend of mine to be a donor, and he agreed. So then we had to start again and go through all the tests. Then they lost tests, and then this went wrong, that went wrong, and that. So we were trying artificial insemination. We did that loads of times. This was now, I was 4 years in. It cost me thousands. Emotionally, I was drained. And then they said, maybe try one round of IVF. So I said, okay. And they were saying, there's no fertility issues. You're just basically old now. And I was like, okay. Did IVF. They found one follicle, but where it was, they had to put me under anaesthetic to get it off the ovary. When they put me under anaesthetic, went in, it wasn't there. So I was like, well, what happened? And then there was a whole hoo-ha. So I was done. 5 years. I did that. At the end of this, I'd kind of met somebody, but I told him what I was doing, and he was like, well, I'd still like to take you out for dinner. But I was like, well, it's going to be very distant because I am going to have this baby. Anyway, spoke to my consultant, and he just said, look, you're basically too old. And I just said, okay. I grieved, and I really grieved, because all I wanted was a baby. And then I put closure on it, and I started this new relationship. I was buying a new car. I was going on holiday. We'd been together about 6 months, and I was late for a period, and I thought, oh great, I'm starting the perimenopause, and and he said to me, you're pregnant. I said, I'm not pregnant, I've just been trying for like 6 years. I'm not.
Can't be that.
And I said, if a surgeon can't get me pregnant in a theatre room, it's not, you're not,
should have spoken to me. I know doctors.
Dr. O'Rourke's the finest, don't you know?
Anyway, so I had one pregnancy test left in my cabinet in the bathroom after doing thousands, and I'd conceived naturally.
Oh, that's fantastic.
After all of that.
Yeah, after all that, I was 46. And I had a great pregnancy, and she was born 2018. She's 6.5 now, and she's just everything to me. And she's fantastic. She's absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
It's amazing.
She's perfect. Yeah.
Oh. Good. I'm glad.
Yeah, she's my world. Yeah.
The Rogers family seem to be quite close with The Choice, headlined by David Yip and Sarah Lamb. Can you just any memories of working with those actors?
Well, yeah, I'm very, very friendly with David's brother Stephen, who runs the Kind charity in Liverpool.
Okay.
And I'd done work for Kind, like from quite early on. So meeting David and working with David was like, you know, Stephen and I and all of that business. So we sort of knew each other. And Sarah Lamb was just beautiful, you know. It's like
She's just done a film with Josh Hartnett.
Oh gosh, has she?
Yeah.
Cow. No, she was just lovely, and it was lovely, just so exotic, having these beautiful faces. Please don't take any of this. I was acting then, and I'm not jealous.
Convince me.
I'm not jealous. Joshua, please. Had them all. Yeah, so that was lovely. That was, you know, because you would get that sort of flow of different people coming through, and it's always interesting when there was a family change or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would freshen it up a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So with Chrissy and the dyslexia, she went through a period where she realised that he wasn't getting the support that he needed at school. And what I thought was so fantastic about the way that it was written, about the way that it was portrayed, is that it would show a contemporary issue from all angles. So you would see how it affects the home life, how it affects the mother, how it affects the child. And then you went in and then you had from the school's perspective, well, we want to help Jeffrey, but we can't because we don't have the funding. Yeah. We don't have the staffing levels and stuff like that. And so then Chrissy came away and was saying to Frank, well, and we'll ring the Dyslexia Society. So for people who are watching those episodes, and then they identify, or a friend or a family member identifies with what's going on with the Rogers, they could take from that and say, well, we're not in despair. This is what we can do. Yeah. We can go to the Dyslexia Society, or we can go to the school or something like that. So it was fantastic about the way that was put across.
We were all really proud of that.
Yeah.
That was one thing that they did get absolutely right and didn't leave halfway through.
Yeah.
You know, it was followed through. It was finished. That's what I was saying before. We were taken down to the House of Lords. We got to meet Roald Dahl, who was dyslexic. He talked about all of that. And as I say, children's television and stuff. And it was great. And I read up a lot about it and stuff. And the parallels of life, because Neil, of course, my son had problems. And I'd asked for help, and it was the same sort of thing. Oh, well, we could offer this, but we haven't got the money. And you're like, then what? Then what? So it was important that it was well done. And it was done right. And obviously, you know, Kevin was the guy to take that story on.
Kevin.
Yeah. Even at that age, he was such a good actor.
Yeah, he was. He was brilliant.
I mean, she had to, in the end, Chrissy had to take him away from the school and thought that she would be able to teach him at home while she was still doing her own job as well. And then he wasn't doing the work that she had set out, and he was like sneaking out to play football and
as you would.
all that kind of thing.
Like you say, so many parents could relate to that, and then all that information was given to them. Yeah.
This is me. I always remember there was, oddly enough, it was somebody I texted this morning, got in touch with me. Neil's 27 by this time, and we're sort of, as a family, we're not close at all. And she got in touch with me and she said, "Look, I've been getting all this information from America." She said, "And this makes me think of Neil." So I went to meet her, and all of this stuff about the little professor, this, that, and the other, you know, because Neil was an extraordinary young man. And I rang Neil. Immediately a light went off. There were tears. I just thought, I recognise what they've given me here. And I got in touch with Neil. He went to see them and he rang me and went, "Mum, this is me, isn't it?" And it was Asperger's. But it's that, once you get a diagnosis for something like that, then things can change. It makes sense,
and then you can act on
change. That. Yeah, I had to change because he couldn't. So we got all of that. And it was the same, it's the same like dyslexia or something like this. When it's noted and you go, that's me.
Why,
That's me. Yeah. And then what's the next step? As opposed
then you can
to
get the support and help. Yeah. But so many parents, sadly, today are still fighting for that.
Yeah.
Even though we know. And it was like that, I told you that woman said to me, you know, I was not diagnosed as dyslexic and I just thought about killing myself. And it's like,
well, how many have been dismissed like that?
Off you go.
the scene that, one of my favourite scenes, Chrissy has kind of admitted defeat. She realised that she can't teach Jeff at home, so she takes him back to the school. She's faced off, she's in the headmaster's office. He's kind of gloating, oh, so you're bringing him back now, are you? And then Jeff goes into the classroom, and then the teacher completely and utterly humiliates him in front of all of the students. And then everybody comes, all of the kids and everybody comes out into the hallway outside, and Chrissy gives this fantastic speech where she brings this teacher down. Said, you do not chastise my child in front of all of these people. If you have a problem, you have a problem with me. If you do it again, I'll wipe the floor with you. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah. I did something similar just the other week. Do you know what you're talking about? This is so, it's mad, isn't it? Because they talk about, art mirrors life.
Mirrors life.
This is very similar to stuff with my own son.
With
so
Neil, who has to say we connected on Facebook a few months ago. I'm proud to say, and I'm a great friend.
Yeah, he's a good mate, isn't he?
Yeah.
So, but that's it. Mothers fighting for their children.
And they still are.
They still are.
Yeah.
Because during that time, if I'm going to be completely honest about it, I was having a lot of problems with Neil. He was only about 14, 15. Didn't know why he acted the way he did. He didn't like being looked at.
Oh.
And I'm his mother. So Chrissy gets spotted everywhere, and Neil would be like,
oh.
It was sort of very hard for him, nightmare for him. So there was all of the levels of that going on as well. All sorted now, but when you think about that, Chrissy's in there, isn't she?
Yeah.
Chrissy's in there fighting for her child, and it was a very similar thing for me. Yeah. But I'm so glad we saw that dyslexic story through.
Yeah, it was really
people
good.
would talk to you about it. That woman. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Were you happy with your exit storylines?
I can't. What?
Well, you
were coming to it a few different times.
Yeah.
You coming in about 2001, I think.
I was in Brookside over a period of 16 years.
87
and then I left
87 to 93, and then left. I came back in 96, and then back from 2001 through to 2003.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and your doctor's appointment's on 19th of June, 1475.
Yeah, that's at the back of the book.
He's got this all sorted.
I can't even remember Sammy's first exit.
I don't remember any of them. I have no.
I remember coming back, but I don't remember leaving. I don't remember you leaving either.
Oh, by then I was just like, yeah, whatever. I knew I was going. There's a very funny story about me and the producer, Mal Young, at that point. So I slightly shouted at him. Because I knew I was off. But it was just like, you were just like, this is what I'm saying to you. Chrissy wouldn't do this.
Yeah.
Chrissy would not. I used to fight for this character. And sometimes you think, just write what you like. But it's, you wanted it to be believable, and it was you in a way you were fighting. So Chrissy wouldn't leave. And was it, because you were getting married, and I'd had to marry Frank, and I did not want you to get married.
Believed.
Getting married young. Yeah, I remember that. You didn't.
So I left. So that's really going to help you, isn't it? I love you
so
dearly. So I'm off. I love my kids, so I'm going. So that was it. No, it didn't make sense. And we missed each other as well, didn't we? Just I remember bumping into you in Tesco's and Ellen Road, and it was just like, oh, Mom, my daughter. Yeah. So stuff like that.
So when you left in 93 to come back in 96 and then to come back in 2001, why were there those gaps? Did you want to go off and do something different? Did you fancy a break or?
You'd have been better off. You'd have been better off getting a crystal ball. Just like,
no, I think I don't. I do remember now. It's coming back. The first time was me. The second time was them. The first time was me, because I needed a break. I'd kind of done this from 15, and it was starting to affect my mental health, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Because you must have to kind of like to make it believable. You must have to kind of like take your mind to a certain place.
And kind of things weren't great in my social life. I was in quite a toxic relationship at the time. And then, you know, it was all just a little bit surreal. Real life, you didn't have a real life, you know, it was...
Well, if you think about it, you hadn't been able to have this adolescence,
No, I hadn't.
had you?
So
To grow
it's
up
all I've
through that.
known since I was 15. Like I say, I wasn't in a great relationship, blah, 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 blah. So I think I just needed to step back. And then I came back into it, which I loved. I had some great storylines and I worked a lot with what's his name? Oh my God. The older guy in it.
Bing. John Burgess.
Bing, John Burgess.
Bing! David Crosby.
David Crosby.
I hate
Gorgeous.
the menopause. Gorgeous. I had loads of scenes with him, and we had some great storylines.
Like all the courtrooom stuff when you were...
Brilliant. Yeah, lovely relationship that was, I thought. I really enjoyed my work with him. And
was he anything like Bing?
No, I don't think so.
No.
He also played a different character as well.
Yes,
He was,
yeah.
Head teacher, wasn't he? Private school.
For Marie Jackson's boys when she takes them off to the private school.
Was he?
Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed my work with him. He was lovely man. And then I got called to the office, Mal, and that saying we don't feel
we can write for you.
We can write for
isn't that
Sammy
funny?
anymore.
We don't feel we can write for Chrissy. It's your job.
Yeah, and he just said we feel we've kind of run out of storylines.
Yeah.
I mean, for you to return in 2001, the main meaning behind the main meaning behind that is because Casey was going through a terrible time.
Yeah.
She had got with Clint Moffat.
Yeah.
Ron Dixon had shot him.
Yeah.
And so she was going through
grieving.
a really difficult
so then they
time.
probably thought
so they brought Sammy.
Which
back.
I'd be the last person really last character I'd bring back. They should have brought a mother.
They did no chance.
She was in Japan.
I was probably still in Japan then, on the back of a motorbike
with another doctor
with my kimonos on, flapping in the wind off the back of a motorbike.
I know, bring back the most unstable member of the family to comfort her and support her.
Wouldn't it have been great if they brought back the first Casey? They just looked at each other.
Yeah.
Is this one of those psychotic episodes?
Yeah. And the two Jeffs.
Oh, and the two Jeffs, that'd be great.
From the dead.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. And
and you in your kimono.
I'll float on the kimono, jump off the back of the motorbike.
Come up with storylines.
What was wrong with them?
Yeah. So I really don't know what happened, to be honest with you, when they asked me to leave, because I got on with everyone. I can't really see there was anything personal, but I remember kind of sitting there thinking, well, I've written for characters in like Coronation Street for like 30, 40 years. Yeah. But that old chestnut. I honestly don't know. But then I was asked to go back, and it was lovely.
Do you know what Sammy did to show solidarity for his sister?
What did she do?
Because there was like the big horrible hoopla about Casey, a partner has obviously been murdered by Ron.
Yeah.
And Ron was obviously the father of Jackie. What she decides to do is that, Sammy is going to seduce Max.
Yeah, who was married.
And that was kind of like the whole revenge plot thing.
Yeah.
But he knocks you back.
Yeah,
I
remember I had to blind.
Yes,
I went shopping
agreed.
for the underwear because I came out, didn't I, in all this underwear, and I remember going shopping with Alex, and I got like one of those sucking pair of knickers, the tightest pair of tights that you could like. Yeah, I remember that. And then Stephen was so lovely. I mean, he is lovely, isn't he?
I did a panto with him.
Yeah, he's lovely. Stuff, I keep in touch with Stephen and his wife Stephanie. She was in Brookside.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah,
she's gorgeous. But yeah, he just used to make me laugh. So here's me trying to be sexy and seduce him, and I could see he's biting his lip, and I'm start laughing. And do you remember when we used to get the giggles, and they'd be like, "Come on now, stop now, come on now, stop."
Come on now, stop.
And we'd be like, and when it's like being told off at school, and
it's like,
can't. Look at that, and you said, "No, come on now, we're going to be serious." And you were going, "My dog is dead. My dog." And you were going, "My dog is dead," and that kicked us all off even more.
Oh yeah, joyous.
Do you remember Casey being bullied by Bagger?
Bagger.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, I used to say, you know, it's like, as in my career, as a mother, you know, I've never had one normal child.
I know.
I was had problem children. One of the first jobs was Blood Brothers. There's 2 dead kids for a start.
Oh, yeah.
And then there would be dyslexic or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had what was it called? The Marksman. I'm pretty sure Kevin appeared in The Marksman as a dead
BBC
child
drama.
in there. Yeah, do you remember?
Yeah.
So he was dead then. So I used to have this joke that kids would be like, who's playing the mother? Eithne Browne. I won't be here long. The mum's Eithne Browne. I'll be dead, there'll be something wrong. So I used to have all of these dramatic relationships with my children.
Yeah.
If they lasted long enough. You did quite well, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
They did.
okay, yeah.
But they only got rid of me once, but then they brought me
Yeah.
back. But they didn't recast me, so that was a good
No,
thing.
that was a very good thing.
Yeah.
It's a very good thing.
Do you know
You're a
why
good
they had
actor.
recast Jeff?
He wanted to leave.
He
Oh,
let-
sorry,
Yeah,
yes,
he
yes,
chose
yeah,
to leave.
he
He
did.
would really want to study, didn't he?
Yeah,
Get on with his
and
education.
it worked for him. It worked for him because he's now a headmaster. That's what he wants to do. But I remember, because I used to live right opposite where his school was in Eithne. And I remember going to visit the school, you know, when he was there and stuff like that. I've still got this amazing piece of pottery that they presented to me that was made by the students.
I'd love to see him
So it's
again.
just like him.
I'd love to
Do you remember
him
the
again.
Brookside model?
Oh, yeah.
area? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Ralph had made it, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff
Yeah.
tried
And then
to
he broke
claim
into
it.
the
Jeff.
school and got it back.
Yeah. So
What happened to that model, by the way? Does anyone know where it went?
In a-
Kill to have that.
you wouldn't think about things like that. They just get
Yeah, it's just
tossed.
a prop,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
just get
yeah.
tossed. You know, it's like I always think about Chrissy's clothes because I always think the way I was dressed as well, and that the big boofy hairstyle. I used to think, did she have something on Frank for him to stay with her? I think it was so unattractive. And I always remember Phil Redmond wanted me, because I wear glasses in real life, and he wanted me to wear glasses as Chrissy. And I went, no, the glasses are me, Eithne. Chrissy went, you've signed a contract. Oh, okay.
Yes,
So
do
you
as you're
got
told.
so you got do as you're told. So he sent me a big bouquet of flowers, going, love the glasses, and I sent him this very prickly cactus back that looked like 2 fingers. Going, yeah, thanks very much. Will you reconsider the contact lenses if I behave? So, but I'm one of Chrissy's beautiful, beautiful pieces of clothing. They were legendary. I had this big grey and white jumper. So the stripy jumper. Do you remember the big stripy jumper?
Yeah.
That ended up in the worst top 10 jumpers, the worst jumpers on television. And I think number 4 was Chrissy Rogers. In one of those magazines, TV magazines.
Love it.
The worst jumpers on television, and one of them was mine. Yeah, I agreed. I had those clothes. Oh. But then it was great playing Chrissy, because it was so different from what Eithne Browne would wear. So you had that going on really as well. Very different.
Do you want to close this out now?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for watching Brookside Close-Up Podcasts. Please subscribe to this channel, and hopefully there'll be more episodes to watch.
Well, thank you so much for
watching.
asking.
Thank you. It's
Yeah.
been so lovely.
been
Honestly, going
joyous
down
seeing
memory
her again.
lane.
A Brookside Mother and Daughter reunion right in front of the fans'
Wonderful.
very eyes.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, both of you.
And
Louise
also
Keith.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And also a massive thank you to Tracy Wilder as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Tracy, legend.
Who is since I met, I'm going to get emotional now, since I met her last year on the podcast, we've become very, very close. And she's completely and utterly changed my life. She's my absolute best friend.
You see? But you see, that's what's so wonderful. We've come together to do something like this.
Honestly,
And it's brilliant.
My heart feels really warm and full, and it's
Well, that's what we were
lovely.
hoping.
Yeah.
That's what we were hoping.
You've brought back memories I didn't even know.
that we'd forgotten
No,
about.
honestly, it's made me just bring all that back now and just think, you know what, it was pretty special.
Yeah.
It was.
It really was.
It's still special to us.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
Yeah.
when it's your job, you don't realise it at the time.
You don't.
So it's good to have that,
don't,
reminded. And
No,
it's
so
lovely.
thank you, Tracy, for
Yes.
asking us.
Yes.
You did. You did. You did, actually. You did on the phone.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he said to me.
Yeah.
And a massive thank you to Ruth Mahoney as well, because she was the reason why I got obsessed with Brookside.
Yeah.
Back in 1987, it's a small child.
Yeah.
Who was that?
My mother.
Your mum.
My mother, yeah. It was back in the VHS era where I was just obsessed with the technology, and that was what was on my mum's videotape. We all had like one tape. Mine was full of Scooby-Doo. I mean, mum had Brookside.
My
and
nan
I watched it and
recorded
was obsessed with it ever
episode
since.
Yeah.
on
Well, do
VHS.
you know, it wasn't until after she died we discovered a scrapbook that Kitty had kept, my mum had kept.
Yeah, my nan did a scrapbook.
Yeah. Oh, and also, I appeared in the Catholic pictorial as Chrissy.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
So that's one for the Catholics.
Yeah, yeah.
Lovely, yeah.
And finally, as well, a big thank you again to Lee Brady, who is another Brookside super fan as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you both.
Thank you.